Hello, my name is Jim Clayton. I'm a resident here in Bloomfield, New Jersey, where I live with my lovely and faithful wife Judy and our three cats, Sassy, Nikki, and Dusty. I was born in Teaneck, New Jersey at Holy Name Hospital to Ruth and Walter Clayton on February 11th, 1947. For the first 2 years of my life, I lived in Englewood. My family moved to East Paterson, where I attended grammar school for 10 years. After that, we moved to Midland Park, where I attended Midland Park Junior to Senior High School, which I graduated from in 1965. For the first 9 years of my life, I was an only child, and I was really happy with that. And then I had a baby sister come along. I had always wanted a brother, but instead a sister came along. And I was hoping to get along with her pretty good, but she was very independent throughout her whole life, and we never knew where she got it from. I got into a lot of fights with her, and she had spent a lot of time with her girlfriends, and it seemed she was a lot closer to her girlfriend's family than our family. And as we grew older, and she became more independent, she moved away, and I haven't seen her for about 10 or 12 years now. In the early 50s, when I was just a young lad, I was highly influenced by Superman and the fact that he worked for the Daily Planet, which was a newspaper, and that made me want to pursue that as a career. So while I was in Midland Park High School in the 60s, I got on the newspaper there, and I also helped name the school magazine, which is called Patterns. The public school I went to was the Gilbert Avenue School in East Paterson, and I was an average student, and I had a lot of friends there. And just about 5 years ago, my wife and I decided to go back there 50 years later. And you know what? It was exactly the same. After high school, I entered college at West Virginia Wesleyan University in Buchanan, West Virginia. I was there for 1 year, but I didn't make the grade at the end, so I wasn't allowed to come back. I had to look for another school because at that time was the mid-60s and the Vietnam War was on and the draft was on my back, and I certainly didn't want to go at the time. So a guidance counselor at my high school had recommended this small school in Minnesota called Lee College. I didn't want to travel so far, but I realized I basically had no choice, so I applied and they accepted me. And when I got out there, I found that 3/4 of my school was from New Jersey, and my roommate was from Westwood, just a few towns away. Lee College was a very interesting school, to say the least. It was an experimental school, like many schools at that time, where they would take anybody who applied, but once you got in, you had to prove yourself. The teachers there were extraordinary. They were the top 10 in their field. I particularly liked one teacher. His name was Dr. Voigt. He was my history and political science teacher. He was so fascinating to listen to and such a great speaker that I ended up signing up for all of his courses and consequently having 2 minors. After graduation, I joined the Army Reserves, which I served for 6 years. While I was in the reserves, which was from 1970 to 76, they were mostly weekends and 2 weeks in the summer. But my most memorable impression was my basic training down in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. The drill sergeants were ruthless and always in your face and really shook me up, but they had to for discipline. But I really liked the camaraderie of my fellow reservists and fellow soldiers who were with me. Upon leaving the reserves, I was working for a while at Sam Goody's. After leaving Sam Goody's, I went into several retail jobs and worked up until 1992 when I met my wife Judy through a personal ad in the Record in Hackensack. Judy and I lived together for 6 years before we got married. At the time I met Judy, I was employed at Burlington Coat Factory in Paramus, where I am still employed today. During the 6 years that Judy and I were together, we discovered a lot about each other, and we discovered that we were very compatible and had a lot of the same interests. Judy loved to travel and go places, and She loved to book us places I had always wanted to go but couldn't do on my own. I am currently working part-time at Burlington because I'm semi-retired while still collecting Social Security. I find time to go out for daily walks, which I like, going for hikes, and I like going to different day trips. I do have a blog called JC's Commentaries, which features reviews of movies, places I've been, and political commentary I send out to people all around the country. I do like chatting with people on the internet and doing research of different stories and places and things that are happening. And I like to hear responses from people who do read my blog and send me messages. Judy and I lived together in Maywood for about 4 or 5 years, and then we moved to Bloomfield, where we got married in 1998 and are living there today. Our first dance when we got married in 1998 was to Rod Stewart's song, Have I Told You Lately That I Love You? And to this day, it still has a lot of meaning to us.
You lately that I love you. Have I told you there's no one else